What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for the finale of building the Battle of Jabiim in Lego. I'm not going to make this intro too long per tradition, but there are a few things I want to talk about first. First off, this isn't going to be, the biggest mock I've ever done. This only took me about 14 weeks, has about 50 minifigures and around 5,000 pieces. I honestly don't know. I didn't do a very good job of keeping track of the piece count, so nothing major, but it definitely fit the size pretty well for like what I wanted for my secondary mock project. Looking at the finished product right now in front of me, I feel accomplished and I feel pleased that I was able to capture the vision that I had for this mock originally, even though there were some tweaks and changes. This is your first time coming across my Jabiim series and my Jabiim mock. I'll give you guys a little bit of brief history. So this is based off the Star Wars Republic comic series, which has a few episodes that take place on the Battle of Jabiim during the Clone Wars. So if you're unfamiliar with any of the characters or the scene or what's going on here, I would recommend doing some research, looking up the comics, but I will do my best to kind of explain the basics, so even if you don't understand any of that, you'll be able to know what's going on here. I also want to give a huge thank you and a huge shout out to you guys, because this is the first mock series that I actually made a profit. I made more money than I spent, basically, which was awesome. And part of that is also due to the fact that I had so many of these pieces already. It's a dark tan dominated mock, and I had pretty much all the minifigures as well. So I had to make relatively few Bricklink orders, the fewest for any mock series, which for those of you guys wondering, why does he always do dark tan? That's one of the reasons. I can crank out so many more mocks and be able to do so many more projects that I want to do in my head if I try and work what pieces I have into what mocks I want to build. I think that's everything I have to tell you guys. Don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button, and while you're down there, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and let's go take a look at the mock. Here it is, my Lego Star Wars mock, the Battle of Jabiim. So this is depicting a Republic base that has been ambushed by Separatist forces, which comprise of your typical B-1 super battle droids and crab droids, as well as the local militia. These particular soldiers are Nimbus Commandos, and this is their leader up here, Alto Stratus. He's kind of the leader of the Separatist / Jabiim forces on this planet. This mock is depicting the ambush in its very early stages, so that's why a lot of the droids are still clumped up over here, and why so many clones have been taken down, and a lot of them are still in the process of rallying and attacking the enemy forces. I wanted to do it this way to really hammer home the point that this was an ambush, because if I were to do it later on in the battle, it would look more like your typical battle, whereas the big deal with this in the comics was that this base got ambushed. Also, if you're interested, the name of the base is Shelter Base. I have two groups for the Separatists. I've got one group that's going to be pushing forward this way. This is kind of like the main and first group, and then we have a second group over here that's breaking off and starting to come around the backside of the base. And then we've got this crab droid right here that's scaling this base wall, trying to get to this clone sniper. He got up here not long after the ambush started and is starting to pick off enemy troops from above. Over here on this side, we have the wreckage of a hover tank. You can see it's on fire. The Separatists threw a grenade down the hatch and then killed the gunner as he was trying to get in and operate the vehicle. I decided to split my clone troopers into two groups as well. So basically we have two battlefronts. We've got this one over here and then this one over here. So I'll start by talking about this front one, and then we'll kind of go around over to the back and then end over here on this side. So this is where most of the clone troopers were, because this is kind of like the hub, the central area of the base. Unfortunately, a lot of them were taken unawares and shot down. But you can see here in the back, one of these clones got to the ATRTs that were stored here, and he's got one of those up and running. So hopefully they'll be able to turn the tide of the battle over here on this side. There is Alto Stratus, the commander of the Separatist forces. You can see he's got a sword and a shield, which if you're kind of confused and think that's weird, I'm right there with you. That's just what he had in the comics, and I wanted to be as accurate as I could. So it was kind of hard to figure out where to put him and what he'd be doing, because obviously you don't want to pit a guy with a sword and a shield against a lightsaber of a Jedi or the blaster of the clone. So I kind of just had him charging here in the front as all of these clones are getting gunned down by his troops behind him. Here behind the building, we have the first of the two Jedis. This is Jedi Aubrey. This is the first time I've ever come across her in these comics. So really, I just I used the custom Jedi robes I bought from Forest Moon Bricks, gave her a sweet hilt and a blue lightsaber, which is the color of hers in the comics. And then obviously there's no official minifigure face for her, so I used this kind of like angry scowling one because I figured it fit the vibe of this battle. She's leading the small group of clones over here, and they're going to charge around the front and engage Alto Stratus and his forces. Moving over to the final section, we have Anakin Skywalker and another body of clones running from the back of the base to rally around him and help repulse this secondary group. Anakin's still fairly young. This is pretty early on in the Clone Wars, so I used his Episode 2 torso and head from the 2013 Republic gunship. He's used the Force to push back this leading group of battle droids, while a couple of clones around him are opening fire on the forces behind. So that's pretty much it for the story. Now to kind of go through some of the features and cool things I want to point out. So first, I want to talk about like why this whole Moc is raised up. In the comics, there's really only one shot you get of Shelter Base, so other than that, I kind of had to just go off of my imagination for this, and I like the idea of having the base raised up and kind of protected along this side here and the back by a large ravine, just because it would make it harder for any kind of rear attack or ambush. And so really the only way forces could come at them would be from this front side. And then over here on this side, I added this little ravine valley, and I did this to just further cement the idea that there's still terrain out around here. This is just raised up from the rest of it. I had a lot of fun with the foliage here because olive green is one of my favorite colors to work with, so I was excited to be able to build with the olive green foliage, even though it's mostly just clusters of these stem-like plants, and then I've got a vine creeping up the wall of the ravine. Here on the backside, I've got a fun little Easter egg referencing the Kenobi series. So for those of you guys who have seen that, the planet of Jabiim is actually fairly heavily featured in that show, and there are these tunnels on Jabiim that Jedi and other fugitives can use to help escape the Empire, and so this is one of those tunnels. You can see there's a rogue Jedi making his way to safety. To turn the light on and off, I just remove these plates on the terrain, and underneath I hid the power box, and then from there I can just switch the light on and off. Now I want to talk about the makeup of the base. So this building right here is the center, the main building of the base. Obviously it's the biggest one and the only really permanent structure. The rest of it is comprised of mostly just containers and tents. I did this for a reason. Shelter Base was a pretty temporary base, and I think it was either like a farm or some kind of structure or compound that had been taken over and repurposed by the clones, and I wanted to represent that and show just the very temporary nature of it. And so I bought these tents off of Bricklink. I've got 2 of them. I would have had more, but they're pretty expensive. And then I've got a bunch of custom crates that I built and designed. So we have 2 dark bluish gray crates, and then this other longer olive green crate, and then this huge olive green storage container. And then over here behind the base, we've got some kind of power generator, which I'm guessing could help power the base or other things, or some kind of satellite array. And then up here on top of the base, we've got a hatch right up here that leads down into the base. And then on top, we've got some storage silos that hold water and other liquids for this main building. And then here along the back, we actually have a larger storage silo with a smaller one next to it. I built a little control panel at the base of the silo to operate the silo, turn it on and off. I built these 2 smaller pipes. I got the idea from my friend Slipstream, so shout out to him, that either feed the silo or take stuff out of it and then spread it out through the rest of the base. So this is what the second story of the base looks like. I wanted this to be like a recreational / resting area. So I've got 2 bunk beds and then some kind of storage locker for the clones to put stuff. And then on the other side, another fun little Easter egg. I put a little TV with a scene from Star Wars Episode 4 playing. Down on the first floor is kind of where the main logistics area of this base is, and the more typical base stuff you would see. We've got a weapons locker on this side with a bunch of rifles. And then on the other sides, we've just got some random computers, sensory arrays, anything, typical of a base that would help these clones communicate with other areas and get scouting reports and radar maps of the surrounding area. For the floor, I just put down a bunch of light bluish gray tile, and then you can see there's a square indent in the ground where I put some vents. I did this to give the base floor a little bit more detail so it wouldn't be just solid dark bluish gray all on the same plane. Well, that wraps up this Moc finale showcase video, but don't worry, there is still more Jabiim content to come. Next week I will be doing a full cinematic for this Mocs, you'll get to see a much more in-depth, much better lit, just overall much better view and look at everything. And then the week after that, I will be continuing my series of 5 things I would change, where I break down my finished Mocs and pick 5 things that I didn't like or that I would change. All that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and supporting this build series. I really do appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. But until then, happy building.